It's been 2 weeks. It's been 10 shows where we haven't had a football game to talk about. All right, so that changes this week. The bye week is over. Tennessee's back at LSU. It's tomorrow, and it's time for your official Locked On Vols preview of the Vols and the Tigers. That and a special guest coming up here on a Friday show.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, everybody? Welcome into it. This is your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cainer. You can find me on social media at _Cainer, at Locked On Vols on Twitter. I write for the VolQuest.com site. That's On 3, the Tennessee affiliate of On 3. Used to do radio here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I know a lot of you guys heard me there. And now full-time podcaster right here on Locked On Vols. And thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your time with me here on the show. It's going to be fun today. We're going to give you my official preview of my prediction of Tennessee and LSU. That's coming up here in segment 1. And then you guys asked for it. We deliver every single Friday a crossover with Talkin VAWLS Boogie Bentley. That's what's coming up here on the show today. But hey, it's Tennessee and LSU tomorrow, 11 a.m. local time, noon Eastern. The game will be televised on ESPN. And of course, you can listen on the Vol Radio Network. This is a game where I just look at it. It's like, okay, who's got the better team? Tennessee. Who's got the better quarterback? Tennessee. Who's got the better coach? Well, Brian Kelly's got more of a track record, of course, obviously. And I think he's going to do fine in the SEC. But point being, Tennessee should win this football game. And I said this about Pittsburgh, and I said this, I didn't really say this about Florida, but I said this about Pittsburgh. Like, in year number 2, you're a better football team. You go on the road and you win that football game because that's what's supposed to happen. In year 2 with Josh Heupel, that's what needs to happen, and that's what I'm expecting to happen. Okay, it's almost like this with LSU as well. And again, this is a perfect example of how things change from offseason narratives or offseason predictions to when you get into the season. I thought LSU would be further along offensively than it is right now. I thought LSU would be utilizing one of the best players in all of college football in Keyshawn Boutte, and it's not, obviously, right? And so I thought it'd be much further along than what it is right now. So I thought this was going to be a tough game for Tennessee to go win, and so I picked it as a loss in preseason. I think Tennessee can win this football game. I think Tennessee's the better football team. I think this is a non-explosive offense for LSU. This padded the numbers and padded the stats a little bit because it's played just like Tennessee. It's played 2 opponents where it could really get after. And so that's why I've kind of changed my prediction. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. But this is almost kind of a game to where Tennessee just needs to go down there and handle business, block out all the noise, and then just get back home, and they can be back in their beds at night at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Meanwhile, I'll be traveling the entire next day trying to get back from Baton Rouge. All right, so tell me about this LSU club. Well, it's 4-1. All right, coached by Brian Kelly, formerly of Notre Dame. You guys know my thoughts on him. Great coach, scumbag of a human being. We'll move on. LSU lost, nearly came back and won, but lost. It was a PAT away from tying Florida State and going into overtime, and it missed 24-23 on national television. That's what LSU lost to Florida State to the season opening week. Now, since then, it's been 4 straight wins. You had LSU, they drilled Southern 65-17, came from behind, erasing a 13-point deficit over Mississippi State 31-16, blew out New Mexico State 38-0 in shutout fashion, and then won coming from behind again, down 17-0 to Auburn last week and winning 21-17. It's shown resiliency. It's shown strain. It's shown tenacity to come back and win some of these football games in SEC play. Now, it's got its downfalls, no doubt about it. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback, he exited the Auburn game and did not return, kind of banging knees on kneecap, and wasn't able to finish that football game. He'll be back. He'll be playing for LSU tomorrow, and he's been pretty solid. Now, it's been a little bit different. You look at his numbers, 915 yards passing, 67% completion, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Those are okay numbers through the air. He does not push the ball downfield. The majority of his targets, I kid you not, the majority of the percentile of his targets have gone to backs and tight ends. He is not pushing the football down the field, which is why you've got a guy like Keyshawn Boutte in 4 games, 11 receptions and 97 yards. It just doesn't make any sense. Jaden Daniels is the leading rusher for LSU. It's got 321 yards on the ground, and that's with 15 sacks counted in there as well. I think he's got near 400 yards, like total yards from scrimmage, right? 5.3 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 64 yards per game. Jaden Daniels is easily the best run option, and he's got more than twice the carries of anybody else on the football team. So you've got an offense that, says it scores 35 points and a half on paper, says it racks up 443 yards on paper, but you take out a 65-17 win over Southern and a 38-0 win over New Mexico State, and what do those numbers look like? You can say the same with Tennessee, obviously. 59-10 was the final over Ball State, and then I don't even remember what it was against Akron, 63 to something. I can't remember. So, we'll see. We'll see what these offenses are, but obviously I like Tennessee's a lot better. But Jaden Daniels is the catalyst. He runs the ship. You've got starting running back that looks like he's going to be out again, Amari Goodman. He kind of leads the way. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year, but Josh Williams, Josh Emery Jr., and Noah Cain also handle the rock in the backfield. Not a very good running football team. They don't have a bell cow. I mentioned Keyshawn Boutte. What's going on? He's just only got 11 receptions for 97 yards in this football game. I don't get it. Other wide receivers that are sticking out, Malik Neighbors is pretty good player, 22 receptions, 290 yards and a touchdown on the year. You've got Brian Thomas Jr., 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. You got Jerry Jenkins, 13 receptions, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season. You've got Mason Taylor, true freshman, tight end, son of NFL Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, who leads the team in targets. He has 13 receptions, 106 yards on the season. Again, this offense, 73 plays per game, averaging 6.1 yards per play. 196 yards on the ground is what they're averaging per contest. 247 yards through the air, 443 yards overall. 15 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing touchdowns for LSU. It's 45.5% on third downs. It has lost 5 fumbles and thrown 2 interceptions on the season, and it's given up 16 sacks actually on the season. What about defense? All right, so the defense is really, really good. Again, throw Southern out the window, 17 points. Throw New Mexico State out of the window. It was a shutout. It's been pretty good. It's held Florida State to 24 points. It's held Mississippi State and Will Rogers, different than Josh Heupel, but still a good quarterback, a good coach, and a good system, 16 points. And then Auburn to 17 points. And Auburn's not going to, it is what it is. Also with Jaden Daniels in that football game, he was like 8 of 20 passing. Just did not look good. And so I think there's opportunity there for Tennessee's defense. But defensively, I like this makeup of LSU. They've got some good players. So I've mentioned his name a million times this week. B.J. Ogilari, 3 games this year. He's played in 2 less games than everybody else, 3.5 sacks. One-time Tennessee football commit. Ollie Gay on the other side has got 2 TFLs, a forced fumble, and a sack on the season. Savion Jones up front has got a couple forced fumbles on the season. Very aggressive defense, and it starts from the front. At linebacker in the middle layer, former 5-star true freshman Harold Perkins is beginning to really find his way in the linebacking room. Mike Jones Jr. is a seasoned veteran that's been there for a long time. Greg Penn III is a guy that plays an awful lot. They play a lot of linebackers, or they play a decent little crop of linebackers, but it's led by Harold Perkins Jr. And then I talked about it all week. That secondary, they took 5 secondary guys in the transfer portal this offseason, 5 defensive backs. Took 2 safeties from Arkansas by the names of Joe Faucha and Greg Brooks Jr. Joe Faucha, 75 tackles in 2021 for the Hogs. Greg Brooks Jr., a 3-year starter at Arkansas, 48 tackles in 2021. Cornerback transfer, Sevion Banks from Ohio State. He got hurt last game, but he came into this year with 15 starts in his career. Mekhi Garner from Louisiana, 19 starts in his college career. Jarek Bernard Converse, 47 straight starts entering the season from Oklahoma State. Those are 3 cornerbacks. 3 cornerbacks, 2 safeties, all with loads of starting experience and trying to figure it out in the back end around incumbent safety Jay Ward, who led the team in tackles a season ago and also already has an interception this season. So this defense is pretty stout. Matt House, the defensive coordinator, they're only giving up 14 points a game, 293 yards of total offense, which is really good, especially when you factor in you've gone against a Mississippi State team as well. It's on the field for 59 plays per game on average, giving up 4.9 yards per play, 184 yards through the air, 109 yards on the ground. Stout both ways. I'm telling you, stout both ways. Giving up 3.4 yards per carry. They've only surrendered 5 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns overall in 5 games. Pretty impressive clip there. And they have 16 sacks on the, or excuse me, they have 13 sacks on the season and 29 tackles for loss behind the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be a challenge. That is what LSU looks like from a nuts and bolts standpoint. It's going to be a challenge, but of course, Tennessee, I think, can be ready for that challenge. I like the Vols in this one. A couple of keys really, really quick, and I'll talk more about this with Boogie. Protect the football. That defense is aggressive, and they've been living off aggressive, forcing turnovers aggressively. Take care of the football. Hendon Hooker, be Hendon Hooker. I don't think Cedric Tillman will play in this football game. That's just kind of my opinion. Of course, we'll see when it gets here tomorrow, but take care of the football, establish a run game. I don't know how well it'll be, but try to establish a run game with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright, and don't run Hendon Hooker more than you have to. Defensively, get after it. You're gonna get torched a couple of times. You're gonna give a few things up. Get after it. Make it hard for Jaden Daniels. Keep your rush lanes up front. Play a lot of cover 0 and cover 1. That's man coverage, because a lot of those targets will go to the tight ends and the running backs. Again, you might get burned a couple of times, but you're probably going to get burned anyway. So let's just see what happens there. I like Tennessee to win this game 34-30. All right, Boogie Bentley coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. Can't wait to bring him on the show. And again, that is coming up next. This episode of Locked On Vols is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to sign up for college football season. All right, it is fantastic. I like Jordan Travis higher than 260.5 passing yards against Wake Forest. I like Drake May as well, higher than 265 yards and a half passing against Virginia Tech. I like Grant Wells, the under 220 yards and a half passing, even though UNC secondary has struggled. Those are some of some things I like from the ACC this year. I like Hendon Hooker over 2 touchdown passes Saturday. I do. Or I like Hendon Hooker under 4 total touchdowns, but over 2 passing touchdowns. I like that against, obviously against LSU. Easy to play and available in 30 states. This is Underdog Fantasy. Just pick between 2 to 5 players across any team, not just your team, and decide if they're going to finish higher or lower than the number set. One of the easiest fantasy games to play out there, and you can win cold, hard cash in a single game. So sign up using the promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Deposit $100 and get $100 for free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store and Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. One word, Locked On. Get in college football pick'em action today with Underdog Fantasy. Just a couple more hours until it's Tennessee and LSU time down on the Bayou. We've been talking about it all week long. We're going to continue to talk about it as we conclude here a Friday show of Locked On Vols. Guys, welcome back into it. Appreciate you for hanging out. I'm Eric Cainer. Now, crossover time. Locked On, Talkin VAWLS with Boogie Bentley. Boogie, what's up, dude?
What's going on, man? I'm ready for some football. It's we kind of joked the last time we were together how it feels like the offseason. It feels like it's been so long since Tennessee has played football. I'm ready to see football and talk about football, and it's right around the corner. It's almost time.
Yeah, no doubt. It has been forever, and certainly it was such an emotional and big-time win the last time Tennessee took that field. So you wanted to just keep on going, right? But they're going to get going here in just a matter of a couple hours tomorrow morning. So looking really forward to that. Hey, what's the mood been like on your shows this week? What's the fan base saying? Are they anxious as well?
I feel like it's 50-50. I feel like there are people that think it feels like 98. We're going to go win a national championship going to Atlanta. And I play into that and I hype it up because it's exciting. And I think we as fans should enjoy that this team is 4-0. And then on the other side of that, there's the people out there that think, hey, we've not beat anybody yet. You go into that Pittsburgh game and talk about how big it is. Go on the road, be tested early in the year, and then you get the win, and some fans, you move on, and then all of a sudden they discredit that. Well, Pitt lost to Georgia Tech. That game doesn't matter. Then you talk about how big that Florida game is. Tennessee goes in, checker kneeling, college game day, big-time atmosphere. Like you said, that's an emotional win. Yeah. And then now it's like, well, it's not the Florida of old. It seems like some of the fan base thinks it's never good enough, and some of the fan base thinks, hey, we're going to go win it all. So it's kind of divided. It's chaos chaotic. But hey, man, it's an exciting time to be 4-0 and a big time road game coming up tomorrow.
Again, it goes back to the whole, well, Keaton Slovis would have played the whole game. Who knows if Tennessee would have won? And I don't know why that argument irks me so much. I won't let it go. I'm like, Tennessee knocked him out of the game.
Yep.
Like, do you not get credit for something there? So I don't know. I'm going to let that go eventually, I promise. But when you look at this LSU team, what do you see? I think Tennessee's the better football team, but obviously LSU's been very resilient. It's good enough to beat you. They've got some players in certain areas. I think B.J. Ogilari is going to be an issue all day long. What do you see in this LSU team?
Yeah, I mean, they've battled back, right? They've started slow, and you can kind of spin it two ways. Number one, I think if they start slow and Tennessee comes out and they do what they do, there may be a lot of people filing out of that stadium down there in Baton Rouge. But they are resilient, and they do fight, and it's that defense, just the way they force turnovers. And we've talked about it before. There's a difference between a team shooting themselves in the foot, I don't know, like Will Levis late in that game against Ole Miss. That's shooting yourself in the foot. But LSU is aggressive, and they force turnovers, and that's a big concern for me. Like, I don't think they're ever really out of the game because of their defense. But I've also, I think Tennessee can score on anybody in the country, and I like Tennessee in this matchup. Maybe it's battered Vols syndrome. Maybe it's because it's on the road. I'm still just nervous going into it, man. But I favor Tennessee in this matchup.
Do you kind of get the feeling that, and I guess it might be as the week's gone on, I mean, certainly I don't feel like I've been portraying my thoughts about this game this way, but maybe I have. Do you feel like Tennessee fans are overlooking this game, or do you feel like it's more like you with the anxiousness and not scared but nervousness, or do you? I kind of feel like maybe some are straight up overlooking this game, and I'll tell you, LSU will beat that A if you overlook them and you go down there at 11 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I said, we talk about 8-4 and all the toss-up games in your preseason predictions, and LSU was a loss for me, even though I called it a toss-up. And people kept saying, well, they're not the same. New coach, new schemes, this, that, and the other. People transferred it. They have a lot of talent on this football team, and I think a lot of people are just looking at that Alabama game and licking their chops thinking 5-0. I mean, we got people in the national media talking about Alabama needs to be careful about Tennessee. And look, I get excited. I'm a fan. I like to talk about, let's go to Atlanta. I love the quote from, Hendon Hooker and Josh Heupel. But as a football team, you do have to take it a week at a time. And LSU, like you said, they'll put a beating on you if Tennessee doesn't show up to play. But again, the beauty of being a fan, the beauty of coming on here and talking Tennessee football is it doesn't matter if we overlook LSU. All that matters is that Josh Heupel's dialed in, this football team's dialed in, and I think Josh Heupel's going to have this team ready to go on Saturday.
It's like the Akron week. We as talking heads and fans of the sport and everything, Josh Heupel was getting mad because he wouldn't get any questions about Akron. Well, Josh, it's not our job to ask you about Akron. We're going to ask you about Florida next week because that's what we care about. That's what our listeners and subscribers, and that's what we care about. And we can do that. Like, I get it. Your team inside that locker room can't, but we can.
Yeah, Akron week. I'm not putting out a scouting report on Akron. No. Week. I'm talking about the ESPN FPI predicting Tennessee to beat Florida. That's what I was putting out on Akron week because, like you said, nobody wants to talk about Akron's quarterback. Well, now back then they didn't. Maybe they did after the game.
I'll tell you what. Sidebar, man. Like, going into the game, I was talking DJ Irons up. I was like, feel bad for this guy. He's a player. He's on a horrible team. He should transfer. He should go somewhere else. And then I watched that game, and I'm like, "You little punk! What? What a loser! What a loser!" I had a really bad taste in my mouth about DJ Irons after that football game, and I get it. You got beat 52-0 and got hurt the week before. You're getting your brains beat in on national television on the road again. Like, there's only so much you can take as a competitor. But man, I didn't like that guy after the game.
No, and it could have been an audition for him. I mean, you had the broadcasters, they're selling it. Hey, you need to transfer. They also saw the way you acted, not just the way you played. And that's, hey, you're building a resume if you want to transfer and try to get to the league. So, yeah, it was a bad look.
Look at Tennessee here for LSU game. The line still at -3. Money line, Tennessee at -145. Over-under is now at 65. That's gone up a little bit. So the prediction I'm thinking about for this football game, now it would actually be under when it was over earlier in the week. So maybe you can think about what that is. But the ESPN matchup predictor has LSU at 58.3%. And usually the ESPN matchup predictor loves them some Vols. Any worry there? Is that just another side of the analytics that we just got to look at?
I think it's interesting, man. And like I said, Akron Week, I'm putting out the ESPN FPI for Tennessee, Florida, because it is pretty accurate. I think it's like 75, 78. It's pretty highly accurate. But Vegas didn't build all those big fancy hotels and casinos by just handing out winning money. They know what they're doing in Vegas, too. I thought this thing, honestly, going into it, I thought LSU would be favored because it was – a home game for them. I was thinking maybe LSU +3 because I truly see it as a toss-up. Just so many intriguing matchups, like Tennessee's defensive line, right? We've talked, you got to get more pressure. You got to get more pressure. And you pull up the stats and look at it, and who in the world thought that Wesley Walker would have the same number of sacks as Tyler Barron and Byron Young? And, LSU's offensive line, they've struggled. They've given up. Jaden Daniels been sacked 15 times, and it's not like it's against elite talent. I mean, when you look at the games, I think New Mexico had 4 sacks. Auburn had 3 sacks. Mississippi State sacked him 3 times. FSU had 4. Tennessee's got to get after the quarterback, and they got to do it with the front four. And I know we're going to talk about passing and the secondary and all that stuff, but it's just an intriguing matchup to me. But it is kind of strange to see Vegas. Vegas likes the Vols, but ESPN FPI Analytics likes the Tigers. Very interesting.
I want to get more on that, something you just pointed out about the defensive line, the pass rush, and what we've seen so far, again, through just 4 games. That's coming up next. We are going to conclude a Friday show, Tennessee and LSU preview with Boogie Bentley of Locked On. Just kidding. That's what this crossover is called. We call it Locked On Talkin VAWLS, but it's Boogie Bentley of the Talkin VAWLS Network. More on that coming up next. Welcome back into it, and happy Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for getting your tailgate started with us here on Locked On Vols. Let's bring back on our good friend Boogie Bentley of the Talkin VAWLS Network. Hey, I was on your show on Tuesday. You're going to be on this show every Friday from here on out, and I think maybe I'm going to jump on Monday. I'm going to be on one of your shows every single week, too. This has been fun, man, and again, we say it every single week. A big portion of my YouTube audience is watching this show, watching your show. I mean, it's back-to-back all the time.
Yep, for the fans, by the fans, man. They ask for it. Let's give it to them. Yeah, the Monday morning stream would be great. I know you're busy, got things going on, so we can bounce you around wherever. Usually we go live Monday morning, 9 a.m., go about an hour. It's a different audience. That's the interesting thing about YouTube. It's a different dynamic, and you've got people that want, they're at work. They're sitting at a desk. They're working. They'll turn on Locked On Vols or turn on Talkin VAWLS and listen to it. So they kind of jumped all over that when I changed and did that morning stream because they're like, hey, I usually catch the replay from the night before. I don't ever get to interact with you live. There's something about that live dynamic that's a lot of fun. So it'll be good to get you on Monday and see a different audience for the Locked On Talkin VAWLS.
We often do like a Monday morning quarterback, like on the radio, like have a VFL on or something. It'll be kind of like this, except I'm not a quarterback. I'm not a former Vol. I'm not that big of a deal, but the Monday morning reaction is what I'm looking forward to the most. So
yeah,
I want to try that out for sure. Yeah, Pat Rod and I, not many similarities there. You pointed out something that I found was interesting as we were heading to the reset here a moment ago, and you're right. I was discussing this the other day. I mean, Tyler Barron had a really good game against Pittsburgh, but that's been it. Byron Young has been in the backfield a lot this season, but hadn't gotten home but one time, I think. I feel like, at least for Byron Young, would have made so much more of an impact statistically so far this season. And, I mean, he disrupted the pass against Anthony Richardson on that last play of the game. That was all Byron Young. That was not – I mean, Kamal Hadden, it was like catching a punt at that point, right? Are you surprised, and is there any cause for concern? Because as you laid out, I think – tomorrow, a great opportunity to get after Jaden Daniels and make a difference that way.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting dynamic, the defensive line. Obviously, I've said it a million times. I think Rodney Garner's the best defensive line coach in the country. And we see Tennessee, and it was kind of the same last year. We saw them have a lot of success against the run. We saw a lot of tackles for loss. But getting the quarterback to the ground just seems to be a problem. Now, is it Jimmys and Joes? Is it X's and O's? I don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know more about getting to the quarterback than Rodney Garner or Tim Banks or anybody on that defensive coaching staff, but it is a concern. And anybody that gets mad, or it was a concern against Ball State, and people – sometimes we lay out excuses. Well, they were getting the ball away quick. They were doing this. And maybe they were. But now we're 4 games into this thing, and you look at a full body of work for a month of football. And, again, Wesley Walker has the same number of sacks as Tyler Barron and BY. I like the job they're doing recruiting guys at the edge position. If BY and Tyler Barron don't come along, they're going to lose that job. Joshua Joseph's already – you're seeing that kid on the field a lot. And, I like you do the PFF grades, and I forget what game. Like, he only had, 8 or 9 snaps. But It seems like you're seeing him make plays. Like, that's a limited number of snaps. And Joshua Joseph's out there making plays. We've seen James Pierce, limited, make some plays. Now, you got 2 good edge rushers coming in the class of 23. But as far as the 2022 season goes, yes, it is a concern. We talk about being aggressive. You would like to be able to sit back and play zone against a running quarterback, but your secondary can't hold up, and your defensive front's not getting there when you bring 4. It is a concern.
Man, Josh Heupel has made it an absolute priority to go. And you look at it like an NFL roster. It's like, okay, how do I want to surround myself? Where do I want my impact guys to be on this team? I got to have a quarterback. I got to get after the quarterback. Sean Davian Bradley, Caleb Herring. Those 2 guys are going to be absolute studs. And, of course, in the last class, you mentioned already, James Pierce and Joshua Joseph. Those are 4 Leo/DNs that are going to be good players, in my opinion. So, no doubt about it. I think, too, with Joshua Joseph, I think James Pierce is just so raw right now. And, of course, you're just 4 games in. Maybe, he'll continue to get more up to speed for this season. But James Pierce is going to be an absolute baller. And think about James Pierce, too, and Caleb Herring, who's not here yet, especially Caleb Herring. They've got the frame to put on. I'm talking like 30 pounds, like if they wanted to. Maybe you don't want to get that big, but like they are super skinny, but they're tall. So anyway, that was kind of a recruiting ramble there. Jaden Daniels, LSU's quarterback, very different from what Hendon Hooker does. He's got good numbers on the season, but he doesn't take many chances, doesn't throw the football down the field. Do you think that changes tomorrow? And if you're Tim Banks in Tennessee secondary, are you being more aggressive and playing man in the back end, or are you trying to mix it up a little bit? Or are you going to go back to what you did against Florida, playing a little bit more zone than anything?
I've said it all week long. I'm living and dying with the blitz. I'm bringing heat. I'm bringing pressure. Jaden Daniels, that's the thing. Is a big storyline this week is Jaden Daniels, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Hendon Hooker, no interceptions. His touchdown to interception ratio since taking over the starting job, just absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
the difference.
It's 43-3, isn't it?
Yeah. Wasn't it 30? Yeah, it was 30. I can't remember.
It was 35-3 last year.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. It's
and
insane.
8 touchdowns, no interceptions this year. But the big difference is, like you said, Jaden Daniels doesn't take shots down the field. Hendon Hooker does. Average per attempt, not completion. Average per attempt, 10.6 for Hendon Hooker, just 7 yards for Jaden Daniels. And you saw it. You saw it in that Auburn game. Brian Kelly throwing his arms up in the air saying, we got a one-on-one matchup. Pull the trigger. Let the ball go. But can he do that? Can he do that? If he's got that, if he's gun shy, if he's scared to let it go, does he have that confidence? And if he does let it go, can this Tennessee secondary go make a play? Why not get after him? Why not bring pressure and see if you can force Jaden Daniels into some mistakes and just put it on this LSU team early and get the crowd out of it? Yeah, it's a big-time advantage for Tennessee to kick off at 11 a.m. Local time, but if you don't think that LSU crowd's not going to be ready to go, you're crazy. They're going to be there. They're going to be boozed up early. They're just going to be drinking a different cocktail because they're going to be there about 4 o'clock in the morning, not 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But, I think you got to get after Jaden Daniels all day long.
Saw the tweet where beer sales going on, opening up at 9 a.m. local time. Holy moly. It's going to be gumbo and beer for breakfast.
Yes.
Can't wait to see that. All right, man. When you simplify this thing, Tennessee, LSU, obviously you want to keep Jaden Daniels in the tackle box. You don't want to let him get out. You don't let him go off. You don't want to let Keyshawn Boutte go off. But, is it – yeah. At the end of the day, football is a simple thing. If you have the better quarterback especially, you're going to have such a high advantage. I trust Hendon Hooker. I trust the Tennessee offense where there are so many question marks about the defense, and I don't think they're necessarily going to be fixed all this week. I don't think the secondary and the defense overall will be as bad as it was against Florida at the end, but it's not like I don't think it's going to be greatly improved. But I trust Tennessee's offense so much more, and I think that's just what it kind of comes down to. I trust Hendon Hooker, even though Cedric Tillman's likely going to miss this football game again. I like what Tennessee has, and I like Tennessee to go score and outscore the other team and go win this football game, especially on the road.
Yeah, it's a quarterback game. That's what it is now. It's quarterback, it's offense. The game's changed. Everybody wants to talk about defense wins championships, and they'll talk about Georgia. Somebody will be in the comment section saying, Boogie doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at Georgia. But it is an offensive game now. It's a quarterback game. And we talked about this last night on our live stream. We don't only have the best quarterback. Hendon Hooker is going to be the best quarterback on the field. He's also going to be the best player on the field. Hendon Hooker is who's going to lead this team to victory. But the concern for me, you just got to win the turnover battle. And I think I trust Hendon Hooker with the football a lot more than I would trust Jayden Daniels with the football for LSU. I think this game is Tennessee's to win, and the only way they lose is if they shoot themselves in the foot or turn the football over.
Biggest individual matchup you're watching on Saturday?
Oh, man, that is a tough call. I would say
it can be player on player. It can be this unit against this unit. I'm intrigued to see how Tennessee runs the ball. Tennessee ran the ball very efficiently against Florida at the end of the day, right? And I know Hooker was a big part of that early on. But at the end of the day, Tennessee got what it was going to get on the ground, and Jabari Small got going. I'm intrigued to see what it can do this week with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright.
Yeah, I just feel like the run game, it's one of those things I don't have a lot of confidence in. I feel like you got to get Hendon Hooker involved to have success with that run game.
He can't be your leading rusher. He just can't be consistent.
He can't, but I'm afraid he's going to be.
Yeah.
I am. And, just 4 games into the season, I've not seen enough from that Tennessee running back room. But probably the biggest matchup, and again, if Tennessee's going to lose this game, it's going to come down to turnovers. How does this offensive line hold up against Ogilari? Like, can they stop him? He has 3.5 sacks on the season. He's a type of guy that can change the outcome of the game. Again, we talked at the top of the show about forcing turnovers versus a team shooting themselves in the foot. He's a guy that he single-handedly switched the momentum of that LSU-Auburn game by going and making a play, and he's a guy that can do that against Tennessee. How does this offensive line hold up? When you look at sacks on the year, how many times has Hendon Hooker been sacked? I think 8 times on the year. Is that because he evades pressure, he escapes, or is this offensive line good against the pass rush? I don't know, maybe a little combination of both. But I'm curious to see if this offensive line can keep LSU, their defensive line, from impacting and winning the football game.
I'll say this, they might not be elite, but they're much better at pass blocking than they are run blocking for sure. All right, Boogie, last thing I'm going to put you on the spot here. And again, this is Friday morning. If you got something coming out on your show or one of your shows later in the day, feel free to bypass this question. But give me your score prediction, what you think is going to happen tomorrow. Give me a bowl prediction. How's this going to play out?
We do our predictions on the Wednesday night show. So my prediction, it's already out there. We've talked about all the ifs, ands, and buts. I think, again, Hendon Hooker is going to be the best football player on that field. I like Tennessee in the matchup. I think Tennessee, I trust their offense to go score points compared to LSU. If they get involved in a shootout, LSU has no chance. And I also like the fact it feels nice to sit down and talk about Tennessee football and kind of say, if this game ends in a blowout, who wins? I don't see any way LSU runs Tennessee out of the stadium. But if LSU shows up and they start slow like they have all year long, Tennessee could put their foot on the throat of LSU and absolutely destroy them. That's a very likely possibility. But my prediction, I was at the gym on the treadmill, burning a few calories, and an old man walked up to me, started talking Tennessee football. And he was like, "What do you think, man? I'm nervous." And
he recognized you from YouTube, did he not?
Well, he's seen my Talkin VAWLS hoodie months ago, and he's like, "What are you, some kind of radio guy?" And I don't think, like I said, he was an older guy. Yeah. I don't think he grasped YouTube and the way it is. But
I tell people that half my income comes from podcasts, are like, "Are you crazy?" And I'm like, "No, like it's the way of the world." Go ahead.
It's embarrassing when you go to get a car loan, and they're like, "What's your income?" And it's like do I just leave YouTube off of it? Like, it's like, oh, you're a YouTuber? And it's like, it's just weird. It's a weird world we live in, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to come onto YouTube, make a little money, and talk Tennessee football. But the old man said, we talked about it, we broke it down, and then before we got done, he said, last thing I'm going to say, Tennessee 35, LSU 24. Have a good day. So I'm rolling with his prediction this week. The old man at the gym says 35-24. I'm rolling with it. You guys, I think in the Monday night chat over at VolQuest, somebody asked how many points does Tennessee need to score to win? And I think maybe you and Hubs were like 35, 38, somewhere around it. And I think if Tennessee scores 35 points, they win this football game.
Yeah. I think I said 35, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm at kind of a 34-30 situation here right now, so I think that's about right. Hopefully, I mean, it could be 34-24, and you feel better about yourself. But we'll see, man. Hey, Boogie, appreciate you, dude. You guys go live over on the Talkin VAWLS Network a couple times a week. You do some things over the weekend. If you're listening, if you're watching, and you haven't subscribed to Boogie and the boys over at Talkin VAWLS, go do it right now. Just go to search it, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, like their videos, support his show as he and his fan base support this show. Can't thank you enough, man. We'll do this again next Friday, but of course we'll be over on your show Monday morning. Catch up, all right?
Looking forward to it, buddy.
All right, that is Boogie Bentley of the Talkin VAWLS Network. He said on his show on Wednesday night, you guys literally demanded it in my comment section. You took over the comment section of the show, so we made it happen, and it's been a whole lot of fun since. All right, awesome show. We've had a blast. We've talked Tennessee. We've talked LSU. We've heard from this guest and this guest and this guest. We've read the predictions, and now it's time to get out there and play. It's Tennessee and LSU. Kegs and Eggs, morning on the Bayou, 11 a.m. local time coming up tomorrow. Please give this a follow at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols to stay dialed in throughout the entire game. And if you're a VolQuest member, $1 for 1 year if you're not. But if you're a VolQuest member, check out the general quarters. I'll be in there with a live thread all morning long. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Check out Locked On SEC. Make that your second listen. Also, continue to support Talkin Vols. We'll be back for more on a Monday morning. This is Locked On Vols.